Anna, sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello, does that work?
Yes, we can now.
Right. So, Chancellor, when you look at the US unemployment figures from today and the number of people claiming universal credit here, does it make you concerned that the cure could be worse than the virus? And secondly, the Deputy CMO has previously suggested the lockdown could continue on and off for 6 months. Are you concerned that the economy could be destroyed by then? And a quick question for the Deputy CMO. Public Health England said 1 million members of the public are going to be sent self-testing kits at home. Who will these people be? How will you choose them? And what will happen to their test results?
Anna, obviously, I have seen the numbers both from the US and indeed here, and of course, they're very worrying. These are people's livelihoods, their jobs, their financial security, which is now being severely damaged. I'm very cognizant of that. That's why we have acted, I think, at incredible speed to put together a number of different packages of support to protect people's jobs and incomes and provide them with financial security through what is going to be a very challenging few weeks and months. There's no two ways about that. But we are taking the advice from our medical and scientific advisors. It is the right strategy where we make the right decisions at the right time to protect people's lives, but also control the spread of this virus to a level where we can cope with it, which then allows us from a position of strength to decide how best to manage things from that point forward. But I absolutely acknowledge this is going to be challenging. People's lives and economic livelihoods are going to be impacted, but I do believe the measures of support that we've put in place will make an enormous difference to helping to alleviate some of that hardship. And I think I think Jenny, do you want to? Yeah.
And I was going to pick up, I think the point about lockdown was it potentially is taken out of the context in the sense that what I was saying was we may see measures of lockdown going forward over the next 6 months. That would not be an implausible outcome. But I also said, I think, that as we're watching the curve, it may be possible, definitely not now because we're only just starting to get some benefit from this, but it may be possible to start moving that. So those interventions at the right time, in the right place, to deliver what we need. And obviously, I think the whole country, myself included, as soon as we can. So I think mentioning 6 months, it's to give a general look forward about the sorts of lengths of this type of pandemic. But we have to remember also that we have, if we are successful, we are lessening the spike on the curve and we are pushing it forward. So success in some ways means pushing it forward, but not necessarily with the strengths and interventions that we have at the moment all the way through. So that would be the first point. I don't precisely recognise the quote that you were talking about in relation to Public Health England, but I think there are 2 points probably. One is we will want to understand very quickly the way the disease has travelled around the country and through different elements of our population. So it may be that quote was in relation to work which will almost certainly go forward in due course, understanding with a proportionate sample of the population who has had the disease and who has not, and that will give us a strong clue as to when we know when the outbreak may end completely. So it's about understanding through different age groups and different vulnerable groups what has happened, which you cannot do consistently for absolutely everybody, a whole population in the middle of an outbreak. But I think in relation to other testing and who gets it and who doesn't, I think I've probably answered that with the earlier one. The absolute point here is it is clinical benefit. It is the people who are going into hospital, into our intensive care units with acute respiratory distress syndrome and pneumonia, the same into the wards, and then those high-risk areas, and then onto our healthcare workers.
Thank you. Thank you. We're out of time. So just in conclusion, if I could say, today was about providing reassurance to the millions of people who are self-employed and are anxious about their security and their livelihoods. I think by any international standard, the package that we have outlined today represents one of the most generous and comprehensive ways to support those in self-employment anywhere in the world. And I would conclude by saying this to all of those who are self-employed, who are rightly anxious and worried about the next few months. You haven't been forgotten. We will not leave you behind, and we are all in this together. Thank you.
The Chancellor there, Rishi Sunak, ending that news conference, which was about 40 minutes or so long. He was also at the podium there with the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Jenny Harris, taking questions on the government's plans to help the self-employed and freelancers get through the economic crisis caused because of the economy being effectively shut down as a result of the pandemic. Lots of criticism of the government because plans for the self-employed and freelancers weren't included in his original statement on what the government was going to do a week or so back, but now he has come forward and he's talking about a taxable grant worth something like 80% of taxable profits for the last 3 years. Let's just recap exactly what he said. These are the main points of his statement helping those unemployed. He said that it would be one of the most generous policies anywhere in the world, and the measures would come into effect from June, as I say, including a taxable grant which would cover 80% of average earnings over the past 3 years, up to a cap of £2,500 a month, and it will be open to those with trading profits of up to £50,000. Let's chat to our political correspondent Helen Catt, who's at Westminster for us now. Helen, as I say, the government came in for a bit of stick because it didn't mention those in the gig economy.